Hi guys. I just said to Alex that's the part I hate the most about videoing these classes because that's what everybody says when they're doing a video. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and it's lame. So notice I didn't say welcome back to my channel. I just said hi guys. It is Friday, it is rainy, it is damp, it is cold, it is gross. It's everything I hate about it not being summer anymore. We did get to the beach last weekend, and I know it sounds crazy because it's the middle of October, but it was a beautiful, beautiful day. There was a great breeze. The sun was perfectly warm. The beach was empty. The kids skimboarded and played for hours. It was great. And then we got to make our traditional Wawa stop on the way out of town for drinks and bathroom, which is always fun. And Wawa has gone completely fall, so everything is pumpkin spice at Wawa right now, which was interesting to see. After all summer, it was just Wawa. Now they've become a little bougie for fall. So, get your mat, get your blanket, lie down on your back. What we're going to do today is work our way through 6 poses that I am sure most of you are very familiar with, but they are considered to be the 6 essential poses that every yogi should practice every single day. So, nothing tricky, nothing you haven't done before. We're just going to go through them all with a little bit of, well, probably a lot of verbalization from me, little cues and little tricks and tips, and just work our way through all 6. We're going to start with a little light stretch in the beginning, move our way through the 6, and then end with just a couple little things so that you leave feeling good. But these are the 6 poses that you should practice every single day, whether you're doing a class with someone else, whether you're going to a studio, whether you're just doing this with me. You wake up in the morning and you find just, 15 minutes of time, a 15-minute block in your day to practice a little bit of yoga with yourself, in your living room, in your driveway, in your bedroom, near your washing machine, wherever it is that you have a little bit of space to unroll a mat, or even not unroll a mat, but just move, just some space to move. So these 6 poses will completely open up all your big joints. They will lengthen and stretch all your big muscle groups. They will help relax you and ease a little stress and a little tension, which I don't talk a lot about in yoga because I like the anatomy part so much more, but certainly that's one of yoga's best selling points, that it can do those things for you. So these are just 6 poses. They're not especially linked together. They're not especially in any kind of a vinyasa, like a flow. They're just 6 random poses that are thought to be the quintessential poses for any yogi to practice all the time. So that's what we're going to do today. Lay on your back. It'll be a little bit of a therapeutic class, but not really, because some of them are trickier poses. Not tricky, but muscular, Like I said, it's nothing we haven't done before, but they're not laying on your back and not moving poses for the most part. So, lay on your back. Get comfy on your mat, arms at your sides, palms up, and start to find your breath. Inhaling and exhaling. We're going to talk more about breath a lot next week because I know the last class I mentioned that I was working on something new with my breath work, and I'm still working on it. I'm still kind of reading about it, and I want to give it to you as an idea, but I want to do it when I feel really confident about what I'm saying. So I'm pretty sure that by next week I'll feel like I can speak about it better. So find your breath. However you find your breath, find your breath. Real quick, while you're laying here, I just want to do a public service announcement for Parks and Rec. This coming Thursday, the 22nd, from 6:30 on at Panther Park Track, there is the Real Panthers Wear Pink Walk in honor of the Susan G. Komen Foundation and raising money for breast cancer awareness. There will be food there for your kids, prepackaged hot dogs and drinks and snacks. There will be some face painting. I think last year there were some carnival games. The first, I want to say 150 people to donate either $20 or $25 get a t-shirt. And the first 20 people to show up at 6:30 at the far end of the track and join me for a free half hour of yoga will get a free pink yoga mat. So that's pretty exciting. So if you find yourself next Thursday wanting to do something good for the greater cause and you want to do a little bit of yoga, join me at Panther Park and be one of the first ones to show up, and you can leave with a free mat. That'll be fun. We did it last year and it was a good night. It was cold and windy, but it was a good night. So you're lying on your back, your arms are at your sides, your palms are up. I'm going to scoot back and join you. And you're breathing. You're inhaling and you're exhaling. In through your nose, out through your nose, out through your mouth, whatever feels best. A lot of rain this week, right? Are you feeling it in your joints, in your body? Are you feeling the dampness? Because I know I am. I have gotten in some good walks with a little bit of jogging mixed in every morning this week, and I switched up my Tabata a little bit to make it a tiny bit more interesting, I guess. I had been doing the same one over and over and over again, so I'm doing a little bit of a different variation, and I'm amping it up a little bit. So I did that yesterday. I near about killed myself, but I didn't. And I expected to be really sore today, but I'm not, so that's concerning me a little. I kind of like that residual soreness. It makes me feel like I did something good, and I'm not feeling it, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I usually do that every other day, so I'll do it again tomorrow. But my whole point in saying all of that was that the rain and the dampness and just the achiness in general that's causing me to feel within my body is really bringing on a lot more yoga. And it's not necessarily rolling out my mat and doing a formal practice. It's just moving as I'm doing things around the house, as I'm laying in bed reading at night, as I'm folding clothes. I'm instinctually figuring out ways to incorporate a little bit of a yoga stretch into so many of my daily activities, and it just feels good throughout the day. So I would encourage you to do that too. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to do a class on that, and I think it will be very interesting. I think it will be fun too. So pull your knees into your chest, arms are out in the big T, palms are up. Use your core muscles, pull the knees in. A lot of these, the six poses that we're working on today, a lot of them focus on core strength and how important it is to develop your core strength in order to feel secure in almost every other pose that you do in yoga. Let your knees drop over to the right, coming into a twist, letting the legs settle first, and then focusing on the back of the left arm so that you're really grounded, you're really spread out, you're taking up lots of space, and your legs are feeling heavy, right? You're not trying to hold them up to resist the stretch. You're going to feel this a lot in the back of your left hip and maybe even the outside of your left thigh, but you want to feel it because you're doing this with the intention of lengthening and loosening and creating space where there wasn't space before. So if you resist the stretch and you kind of baby yourself, you're not going to get the most bang for your buck, which you want. So I wrote down these 6 poses because I didn't want to forget them and have to go to my phone. So like I told you, they're all poses you know. Child's pose, corpse pose, which we'll end with because that's Shavasana, downward facing dog, cobra, all familiar, right? Nothing tricky, but they all serve a very good purpose in practicing yoga, and that's what we're going to talk about a little. Standing forward bend, you know that's one of my favorites, and 4-limb staff pose or plank. We're going to do the plank variation because, like I've said a million times, I don't know who's practicing with me, and I want to make these classes as I want everyone to be able to participate as inclusive as possible. So I don't want anyone to feel like they can't do anything that's too hard. And 4-limb staff pose is a variation of the word just went right out of my head. I don't know. It'll come to me in a few moments at like a weird random time. I don't know. I totally don't know, but it'll come to me. I was just cleaning, so maybe it's the cleaning fumes. Bring your knees up to center. Come on into a happy baby or a wide knee child's pose. Find your movement. Pull your feet wide. Make sure the bottoms of your feet are facing up towards your ceiling. And then pull everything down like you're trying to get your knees into your armpit area, so that you feel this as a super big stretch that sweeps from the back of your hip right around your tush up into your hamstrings, and then up into the back of your knees a little bit. I am not good at stretching in the morning before I go out, and I've been trying to get out between like 6:30 and 7 for the last month or 6 weeks or so. The last 2 days I've been going a little later, like 7:30, because my husband's been home, and my bed was very cozy. So, but I'm not good at stretching, and especially not that early in the morning. I just want to go and get it over with and get back for school with Cam, make sure Alex is all set up. So I had a weird pull in the back of my left knee earlier this week, and there's just so many joints and ligaments and tendons and muscles back there. So when you do child's pose, which I know you've been in for a while, but it's okay, it gives you the chance to lengthen all of that stuff, and it's a good one. So drop your legs over to the left, coming into a twist. Pay attention to the back of your right arm, so let the legs go, and pay attention to what the back of your right arm is doing. You don't want it to be bouncing. You don't want space between the back of your shoulder and the ground. You want the arm to be out flat. When nail salon first opened, I guess maybe, when was that, July, maybe? I don't know, but my best friend and I ran out. We made appointments for our usual place. We got pedicures, and it was fine, but it was just, it was not relaxing because it's so different than the way it used to be. And also, I think because, at least for me, I'm on edge about COVID and about getting COVID and giving COVID to my parents and my kids, and you know, so I think I went once more after that, and then I just kind of thought, this isn't worth it right now. Like, I need it to be good or it's not worth it. But I was looking at my feet the other day. It's not the same. Homemade pedicures are not the same. They stink, if we're being really brutally honest with each other. Bring your knees up to center. Come on into your child's pose. So here you are in the first pose of the 6 poses that is recommended you practice every day as a yogi. So, child's pose. We just went through this, but I wanted to wait for the second one so that we could hang out and talk for a minute about it. You're holding either your big toes in a yogi toe lock. That means your first finger and your middle finger on each hand are wrapped around the big toe of each foot, and you can bend your elbows out to the side. That's the important part of this. You want to make sure that you can bend your elbows out to the side, because if you can't, then your arms are going to lock and you limit your range of motion. So, child's pose in yoga is thought to be a go-to resting pose, right? This is a lot like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not doing child's pose, you're doing happy baby. I'm losing my mind today. I'm losing my mind. Stay in happy baby for another minute. And then bring your feet down, roll to your right, come on up onto hands and knees. Just skip everything I just said. We're gonna go back to that in 20 seconds when I get my head back together. It's the rain, and I think I have seasonal affective disorder, a little touch of that, and I think it's already starting because it's getting dark earlier, and it's so gross. I make my bed in the morning, and I think about how I can't wait until it's time to go back to bed and read my book and watch a movie. That's a shame. Okay. You can have your toes curled under, or you don't have to. It's up to you. Fingers are spread nice and wide, and we're just going to cat and cow and move our spine around a little bit. So, inhale, press the spine up, drop your head. Exhale, arch your back, and look up. I washed my hair today, and I blew it out, but then I didn't flat iron it, so it's getting a little bit puffy from the weather, which is why I shoved this headband on here, because I feel like that's my catch-all lately for kind of doing my hair, but not really doing my hair. And I threw some oil in it too, which usually helps, but I can see it getting puffier by the second. Okay, exaggerate your movements here. So everyone, one more time, inhale, press the spine up. exhale, arch your back, and look up towards me, towards your iPad, your laptop, whatever it is you're watching. Make sure you can bend the elbows a little bit. Arch your back as much as you can. You want this to feel really good, and you want it to be a long stretch from where your skull sits on the top of your spine out through your tailbone. And then come to a neutral position. Now we're going to come into our child's pose. So let's all come into that for a second together, and then we'll come out of it to talk about it a minute, and then we'll go back into it. So, big toes touch. I actually read something about this morning when I was thinking about this class that I'd never thought about before. But not only does this pose stretch the back of your hips and your piriformis and your hamstrings, but it also stretches the tops of your feet. I had never thought about that before, but I mean, think about it. Think about what you're doing. The tops of your feet are flat on the ground right now. Your big toes are near each other. And that's an unusual position for your feet to be in. The dog's going to go nuts in a second. Hold on. Stick with me. Hold on. She's on high alert on the chair. Someone might be dropping off a package or something on the front porch. You okay, Cal? Her ears are twisting. I didn't put her in her crate because Alex is sitting over there and I was hoping he would help me. Okay, I think we got through it. So the tops of your feet are getting a stretch here, which is just one more benefit of the pose. So what you want to do is come down low. Some people stay here because this is as much as they can do. If you can get your forehead or chin to the mat and bring your arms out in front of you, you're going to get more out of it. I like to bring my forehead down, and then I rest my forearms down on the mat, and you find your breath. Okay, come on up just enough that you can look at me and that you can hear me, because I know when I'm in that position that I sound a little smothered. So, keep your legs in this position if you can. Maybe just come down on your forearms. That way the hips continue to open. So in yoga, in any class, anywhere, with any teacher ever, child's pose will be the go-to resting pose. And you don't have to wait for a teacher to say, go to child's pose. You can go on your own anytime you want to, and no one should question you ever. You're opening your hips, which is kind of an obvious thing from the way you're sitting, right? Your femurs are going out to the side of the hip sockets. Your front hip flexors, if you take your hands and you kind of make pinchers like lobster claws, and you go into your hip sockets, you can feel that you're getting new space and that you're moving those hip flexors that normally would just go straight down your leg out to the side a little. So you're stretching them and you're lengthening them, which is what you want. Anytime you can open your hips, you need to do it. Also, this helps to relieve neck and back pain just by the nature of the pose when you get your head or your chin down to the mat. But also, if you can't do that, and this is where you're at, if you let your head drop and you melt between your shoulder blades, you're still going to get the benefit of releasing tension and tightness between the shoulder blades, the upper shoulders, and the back of the neck. And then, finally, like I talked about a couple minutes ago, which I don't mention often, this is a pose that allows you to breathe really fully and deeply. And once you settle into the pose, you can concentrate on your breath and release a lot of tension and release a lot of stress that maybe you didn't even realize you were holding. So, get the knees as wide as you can. Get the big toes together so the tops of the feet are down on the ground. Forehead, chin, arms, whatever you can, down to the mat. We're going to go down and stay down for maybe 30 seconds. Not super long, but a little bit, okay? Arms come out in front. Go ahead down. One thing I want to say about this is that a lot of people don't feel like they're able to really do the pose because they can't sit their tush back on their heels. My butt doesn't go on my heel. Some days it does, some days it doesn't. It depends on how tight my hips are. But in general, most people don't. It doesn't matter. You're still doing the pose. So don't even think twice about the space between your butt and your heels. It has no bearing on whether you're doing the pose or you're doing the pose correctly, or you're going to get the benefits of the pose. You're going to get them regardless. So go ahead down. up to hands and knees. We are going to use cat and cow as our transition pose, as our pose that we go back to in between every other pose, just to kind of move around and loosen up and have a little bit of continuity to this practice. Now, after you hold child's pose for a minute or so, like we just did, you might feel it in your hips as a release. Sometimes that release feels like new tightness, but it's not actually new tightness. It's kind of like your body's exhaling and saying, thank you for giving me that new space. Just realized I forgot to put lip balm on. That makes me nuts. I think there's one right here. Give me a second. My marshmallow moisture stick that I use every day when I walk. I think I talked about this one time in a class. This is a lifesaver for me in the beginning of the pandemic. It's by Treat Beauty. You buy them on Amazon. And this one in particular, they're really big chapsticks, which is awesome because they last for ever and ever and ever, and I use them constantly. But that one in particular is a moisture stick, so use it on your lips, use it under your eyes, use it wherever you have dry skin. And it tastes like marshmallow, which is delicious, but it also just seems to work for hours and hours and hours. So they're about $14 on Amazon. I know that may seem a little expensive for a lip balm, but it's really, really well worth it. I think I have 3 or 4 of them floating around right now, and I just saw that they came out with black licorice flavor, which I'm a little bit scared of, but I'm also super intrigued by. So the next pose that we're going to do, because we're going to save corpse for last, let's come on into, this is tricky. I'm not sure where I want to go with this. Let me think. Okay, we're going to come up and we're going to come into our standing forward bend. Okay, you know that forward bends are one of my favorite things in yoga, just because anytime I can lengthen my spine, relax my shoulders, let my head be heavy, it's always going to feel good for me. Standing forward bends serve a couple purposes. 2 of the main purposes are to lengthen your spine and uncrunch it from your low back, like uncrunch this whole area up, but also to lengthen everything in the back of your legs. So a few minutes ago when I was talking about how I don't stretch well in the morning, and sometimes I get a tightness in the back of my knee, if I took a minute to do something as simple as a standing forward bend, that would make a huge difference. I just forget. But standing forward bends are fantastic for a lot of things. So you want to start with your feet hip width and parallel, like train tracks, right? Head of the arm bones roll back. This is not so much part of the standing forward bend as it is part of the leading up to it, but it's what I always teach, so we're going to go with it. Head of the arm bones back, palms forward. Inhale up. Exhale, start to hinge at the hip. Stick your butt out behind you a little bit. Go all the way down. Your fingertips may not touch the floor. If they don't, that's fine. You can bend your knees a little bit. In fact, you always want to have a micro bend in your knees when you're doing a standing forward bend. You don't ever want to hyperextend because you can end up hurting yourself and causing damage to the ligaments and the joints in the back of your knees. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything I wrote down here. Nope. So a standing forward bend is really good for releasing everything. Keep the micro bend in the knees. You may be able to get your fingertips down. You may be able to get full palm down. You may be able to get the back of the hands down. You may be up here. If you're up here, there's no shame in that. But I want to make sure that if you're up here, you still fully release the back of your neck. See how the back of my neck, I don't know if you can see, but the back of my neck is facing you. It's not facing the ceiling. And that's what you want. You want to be looking at your own thighs because your head, the crown of your head, is facing straight down. Now, if you've got bent knees at all, in fact, everyone do this. Take your hands, take your palms, put them on the back of your knees, and then provide a little resistance. Press your palms into the back of your knees, and at the same time, press the back of your knees into your palms. Provide a little bit of resistance there, so it's kind of a give and take with how straight you can be, but at the same time not hyperextending. And then release the hands and just hang forward. Find your breath here. Engage the core, create some space so that you can hang a little bit deeper, bend a little bit deeper. Notice when you exhale if you feel any softening, if you feel any extra release. Sometimes I do, and that's such a nice, welcoming feeling. When on the exhale, you feel like you can just all of a sudden fold a little bit deeper into your bend. And then slowly come on up. Adjust your pants. Adjust your hair. Do whatever you need to do. Okay. So, next up, let me think. Next up is downward facing dog. Downward facing dog is one of my very favorites. I'm going to turn my mat, I guess. Downward facing dog is another one that's a completely full body stretch. I always hate when I hear people say that they don't like downward dog, because unfortunately downward dog plays a huge role in any yoga practice, but I understand that it's an acquired taste because it puts a lot of strain sometimes on your upper body, and I know that a lot of women predominantly feel like we don't have strong enough upper body strength to hold a downward facing dog. But between dog and plank, the more you practice them, the stronger you feel, and that's kind of the secret. The secret is there's no secret, you just have to keep practicing. So, come on into hands and knees. Downward facing dog. Spread your fingers nice and wide in the front corners of your mat. You want lots of space between each finger. And if you're like me and you always wear sleeves that are long or have the thumb hole like that, you're going to want to pull them up a little. You don't want to get that trapped under your palms because it makes you uneven, and it can also make you split. So, as cute as the thumb hole is, when you're actually practicing and doing dog, you don't want to use it. Curl the toes under, lift the hips, come on into dog. I don't know how much of me you can see in this, but the way I always teach my students to check their dog stance is to roll forward on the balls of your feet and come into a plank, and then press back. If you don't have to move your hands or feet at all to come into plank from dog, then your dog is distanced out perfectly and you're in good shape. Drop your head. Come on up high on the balls of your feet. Bend your knees. Press your hips back behind you, and then lift the hips to straighten the legs and allow the heels to lower. Nice deep breathing here. One more big breath in. And lower down. I don't know, that might have been a long time for some of you. You know, when you're in a class with me or with any teacher, if the teacher asks you to hold a pose for too long and it's really too much for you, come on down onto hands and knees. Sit back and watch. Or go into child's pose, or do a couple cat and cows. You know, it's really important, and I can't stress this enough to most people, that when you go to take a yoga class with any teacher, that teacher works for you, right? When you come and take a class with me, I'm working for you. So if what I'm asking you to do, or I'm saying to you, doesn't work for you, then figure out how to make it feel better for yourself, because it's your class. You know, I can tell you all the things in the world that I know about yoga, and what it does for me and how it makes me feel. But if it doesn't resonate with you in the same way, then it's important that you figure out how to fix that. Because yoga is not a cookie cutter activity. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for the person next to them. So if you're asked to hold a dog too long, if you're asked to hold a plank too long, I mean, test yourself. You might be capable of more than you think you are. Give yourself a little more credit maybe and try it. But if it's too much, then by all means come out of it. So let's see, what did I want to tell you about dog that I might have forgotten? It opens your shoulders, your hamstrings, your calves, your arches, and your hands. We knew that, right? It is the best prep for almost every single pose you'll ever do, especially handstands. When you start to practice handstands, dog is the pose you start in. You get close to a wall with your fingers facing the wall. You come on up into your dog, and then you keep walking your feet in closer and closer and closer to your hands, so your hips are getting higher and your spine is becoming more parallel with the wall. So if you ever want to have a practice that involves handstands, dog has to become your best friend. I'm sorry to tell you that. Now also, it's a little bit of an inversion when you do dog. Your head is lower than your heart. Any inversion is going to be calming for your brain, for your CNS, your central nervous system. It's going to release stress and tension. So if dog is an annoying pose to you, try to see it in a new light. Try to see it as your new yoga best friend that will always make you feel better, even if you do it for 10 seconds a day. It'll feel better. You'll feel better, I promise. So what we're going to do is go from dog into the fourth pose that it's recommended you practice every day, which is either four-limb staff or plank. We're going to do the plank version because I think everyone's capable of some version of plank. So come on up into your dog, and remember what I said. If we hold it for too long, come out of it. We won't hold plank for as long as we held dog, but we want to hold it for a little bit, okay? So make sure your sleeves aren't under your palms. Spread your fingers nice and wide. Hips come on up into your dog. Now remember what I said, to make sure that your hands and feet in your dog are wide enough, all you should have to do is roll forward, shoulders over wrists. Engage the core here. Press out through your heels. Drop between the shoulder blades so your heart melts down towards your mat. You're going to start to shake, but that's okay. Press back into dog, take a breath. And then again, let's inhale forward into cobra, into plank. And then one more time, back into dog. Let's come down into hands and knees. So plank involves so much core strength, and the more you can engage when you're doing plank, and suck it in is another word for engage, the stronger you'll feel. And the stronger you'll feel in almost all your poses, and that strength will start to build up, and that's a good thing. So from plank, we're going to go into the fifth recommended pose for yogis to practice every day, which is cobra, which I love. So I'm going to turn my mat again. I feel like every pose we do, I say, I love that pose. I love a standing forward bend. I love downward facing dog. I kind of do love them all, I guess, right? Not all. There's some I hate. But we don't have to talk about those. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to link together three poses. We're going to link together our downward facing dog and our plank, and then we're going to transition. Oh, hi. We're going to transition from our plank right into our high cobra, assuming the dog doesn't sit right in front of me. Oh, look, isn't she precious? Look at that. Look at that view of her butt you're getting. You need to move away. Thank you, miss. All right, so come on up into your downward facing dog. Maybe she heard me say dog. Shake out your neck. Roll forward on the balls of your feet.
Oh, no.
Now, bring your knees. Oh my gosh. Come here, come here, come here, come here. Holy cow, did that give you guys a heart attack? Oh my gosh. Alex, take your dog. Sorry, all my 58 subscribers. I apologize for that debacle. You shouldn't have to see that ugliness ever. Hey, you, go with your dog. I'm not kidding. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I want you to watch me for a second. Typically, you would go, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Typically, you would go from dog to plank. And then you would do something where you either did knees, chin, chest, or you did a Chaturanga Dandasana and came up into your cobra. Have you guys met Alex? This is Alex. And then you'd find yourself in your cobra. But rather than go through that, we're just going to come up into a cobra and we're going to play with it for a second. So come on down onto your tummy. Let's windshield wiper our legs for a minute. Marianne Healy, if you're with me, this one's for you, girl. Windshield wiper your legs for just a minute. Okay, so in Cobra, from your low core out through the tops of your feet, you're firmly down on the mat. There is another pose called Up Dog where you can lift your thighs and your hips off the mat. That's not what we're doing today. We'll play with that another day, but that's not what we're doing today. So, to start with your Cobra, your hands come down under your shoulders, fingers spread nice and wide. We are going to do High Cobra because that's the one that I do most of the time. And I don't know that I ever teach Low Cobra because I just never ever practice Low Cobra. If High Cobra is too much on your low back, then by all means go lower. By all means. Don't do anything that I'm telling you to do if it feels crummy. Okay? So fingers spread nice and wide. Press the tops of your feet down into the ground. Press the knees into the ground. Keep the hips down in the ground. And come on up. So right here, I'm hyperextending my arms. Not what you want to do. I want to put a bend in my elbows. I want to soften. I want to drop my shoulders, roll them back, bring my shoulder blades together on my back, and then let them slide down a little bit. And I can hang out here. I'm pretty comfortable with this. You might want to wiggle a little. You want to release your low back by unclenching your butt. Take a big full breath in. Exhale, lower down. Turn your head to one side and windshield wiper your legs. Cobra is not typically a transition pose, but as part of a vinyasa, which if you're not familiar with that word, it means a class that flows. Everything is linked, so you kind of continuously move rather than take a pause between poses. As part of a vinyasa, Cobra's in there a whole bunch of times. So Cobra, as I'm sure you can imagine, is really good prep for all back bends because it's a back bend, but it's a very nicely supported back bend. It strengthens the spine, it stretches the chest, it opens up the lungs, it lengthens the abs crosswise, as well as opening up the front of the shoulders by bringing the shoulder blades together on your back. And I don't know if I've said this recently, but any time in yoga that your shoulder blades come together on your back, you're opening up your whole front body, and that's a really good thing. You need to think about your Cobra as being a long extension from your low back out through the crown of your head. So let's come on up one more time. Fingers are spread nice and wide. Press the tops of the feet in the mat. Press the knees into the mat. Press the hips, those hip bones into the mat. Come on up. And then soften. And in that softening, you're just letting go of anything muscular from the core down. And I'm not saying that you become mush. You just are not clenching and tightening because you don't want to leave feeling worse than when you got here. Move around a little. Make sure you've got that slight bend in the elbow, the shoulders are dropped, and the shoulder blades are coming together on your back, like I said a minute ago, so you can open up across the front. Lower all the way down, windshield wiper your legs. One more time. And then from here, we're going to go into our sixth pose, which is corpse pose, which is what we normally call Shavasana. So those are our 6 poses that are considered to be essential in a yoga practice as a yogi, even if you only did those 6 every single day. So what have we got? We've got child's pose, right? We've got downward facing dog. We've got plank. We've got cobra. We've got corpse, which is also known as Shavasana. And we've got, which one did I forget? Is someone yelling it at me right now? We've got standing forward bend, my favorite. So you can link those 3 together. You could do, let's see, you could do whatever you want to do in the beginning to kind of loosen and stretch. Then you could go into hands and knees, up into downward facing dog. You could walk up into a standing forward bend. You could walk or jump back into downward facing dog. Inhale forward into a plank. Swoop all the way through, come on up into a high cobra, and then either lower down or from high cobra, flip your hips and come on up into dog, and then maybe start the whole thing all over again. Or after you did that last cobra and dog, you could just come on down into one more child's pose, flip over on your back and go into corpse pose. So there's a way that you could link those poses if you wanted to, but like I said in the beginning, you don't have to link anything. You can just do them independently and free without trying to make it a vinyasa or any kind of a flow. But if you can do those 6 poses every day and get into the habit of doing them, giving it maybe 10 minutes of your time, your whole body would feel open and loose because those poses will target everything on you, from the arches of your feet and the tops of your feet, straight up the backs of your legs, into the hamstrings, into the hips, going further up into the spine, up into the back of your neck, out into the shoulders, wrapping around into the chest. Those poses would target everything for you. So see if you can get into the habit of practicing those 6 poses, right? Child's pose, standing forward bend, downward facing dog, plank, cobra, and Shavasana, which is where we are now. So lie on your back if you're not. Get comfy, arms at your sides, palms up. Find your breath. Find your breath. Go through that list in your head one more time, just so that you have it in case you want to start to get together a little yoga practice of your own without instruction. Child's pose, downward facing dog, plank, child's pose, standing forward bend, downward facing dog, plank, cobra, and Shavasana. Sometimes it helps me to remember a little group of poses if I can picture the sequence in my head. So maybe do that. Maybe picture yourself doing a standing forward bend at the front of your mat. And then picture yourself stepping back into dog, rolling forward into plank, lowering down into your cobra, pressing back into your child's pose, and then flipping over for your Shavasana. Sorry you guys, I'm not sure what happened. My phone literally just stopped taping. But you're lying on your back, you're finding your breath, you're in Shavasana for just a minute. And as always, I'd like you to start at the top of your head. I say as always, but I don't know that I always ask you to do this. Start at the top of your head. work your way down. And just take note of how you're feeling now that you've moved everything and you've relaxed into some poses and you've opened and stretched and lengthened. Hopefully you feel better than when we first started, which is always, always what I would want your answer to be. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes a little bit. Bring a little bit of movement back to your body. And when you're ready, roll over to your right hand side. Press yourself up to a comfortable seated position, or just hug your knees and rock yourself up. Thank you for joining me. I don't know if you'll do this tonight or tomorrow or Sunday. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, but this seems like a good rainy day practice. So thank you for joining me. As always, I appreciate it. This class is courtesy of the Cedar Grove Public Library. So thank you, library. And don't forget that if you want to do a little bit more yoga, consider coming out to Panther Park on Thursday night, the 22nd at 6:30 or a little before 6:30 if you want the free yoga mat. Look for the pink mats on the field and come practice with me. It's going to be a quick half-hour class, but we'll have fun. It's for a good cause. You can give your kids hot dogs and not feed them dinner. And you can socially distance and still see some people, and it'll be good for you. It'll be good for your soul. So, hands come to your heart in prayer. Take a nice deep breath in. Exhale the breath. One more time. Inhale. And exhale. Namaste. Thank you guys. I appreciate you, and it's always good to spend time and practice with you. Have a great weekend. I will see you. Have a great week, too. I'll see you hopefully Thursday, maybe Wednesday if you're in my Wednesday class. If not, I will hopefully see you next weekend. Take care. Be well.